My name is Ije Nwokorie. For work, I'm the CEO of Dr. Martens. I was born in Pennsylvania, but grew up in Nigeria. We left Pennsylvania when I was 6. So I officially became the CEO on January 1st this year. A friend of mine who was a leadership coach in San Jose on the West Coast recommended to me, I'm going to say it was December 2017. That was an important moment for me because that's when I moved from being the CEO of Wolf Allens to being an executive at Apple. As I'm moving from a place where I was a chief executive, like the top guy, I'm moving to Apple, where I'm one of maybe 1,000 senior directors and there are VPs, and so. But I wanted to still have an impact, and so I was just thinking about how do you maximize impact when you don't have all the formal authority. The reason this book matters to me and has really been important to me is that it isn't actually really a book on productivity. There are tons of those. This isn't a book about time management. It's actually a book on having to live to your purpose. And it's this whole idea of, if you're going to fulfill your purpose, you need to focus on the fewest possible things to make the maximum possible insight. The subtitle to the book is The Disciplined Pursuit of Less. And I had an undisciplined pursuit of more. The philosophical argument, if you like, is that to be non-essential is sort of the disease of our modern times. This belief that one can have it all, do it all, is not actually making us healthier or more productive. It leads to diffusion of efforts, energy scattered too widely all over the place, and we lack presence with each other, and eventually, in some form or another, a ton of burnout. So this is an antidote to that. And the core idea of it is that you need to understand that life is a series of trade-offs, and that any human agency is based on making choices. That is, particularly for our modern times, that is the ultimate skill, is to be able to get the right trade-offs and the right choices. And if we don't choose, others will choose for us. And so we have no chance of fulfilling our purpose on the earth. That's the fundamental argument of the book. The thing that sticks with me and that I lean on every day are almost the philosophical principles, because then it's easy for me to kind of go, oh, what the heck? Why are you doing that? Practically, I build into my year, my month, my week, my day pauses to reevaluate as much as possible. December 27th and 28th of every year, I'm off on my own. I go away and I'm just thinking about what are the gifts that the next year presents in terms of the challenges that I'm going to face and what I want to achieve in my life. And I write a plan for my year, right? And so every quarter, and actually next week is this quarter, every quarter, I'm taking a thinking week. So I've got a bunch of things that I'm going to think and read, but I will not go into the office and I will not take meetings. And every day I kind of start with my ideally 2 hours, but it just means I have to wake up earlier, which gives me the discipline to go to bed earlier. And like ideally between 5 and certainly 6:30, 6:45, like just time to kind of think about what am I doing and why am I doing it. And as a CEO, this is the discipline that I only get involved in things that are really difficult. Working for Dr. Martens, there are lots of cool, fun things you can get involved in. I could be in every product design meeting because there's so much fun. Like, what material do we choose? I can go to every market every day, but there are people whose job it is to do those things and who are probably better than me at doing those things. So kind of defining the CEO's job as only the problems that are difficult, and then just learning how to say no a lot. I would say I prioritize my team and my family and close friends like Will. Like, I don't do a lot of what I'm doing right now, like because it's great and it's a good thing to do, but it's time that I could be using either resting or having lunch with my wife or spending time with the team. And so just really recognizing that, because I know what I'm about, you realize that there are a ton of things that are nice to do, but I don't need to do them. Jonny Ive has this, you find it if you Google it on YouTube, and actually he's talking about Steve Jobs, and you can get that misconception from this book, even that prioritization is the elimination of the trivial. Steve and Johnny's in their way of thinking about prioritization is actually deciding not to do things that every part of your being wants to do it, but if you do that, you will fail to do something that is even more important than every part of your being. So like you're not prioritizing until it hurts. And that's one of the challenges I ask myself, like edit, cut, and then look at it again. And if it's not yet hurting, then cut some more. And I've just found that we have so many, all of us have so many sacred cows that we think, well, I have to be in that meeting and I have to be at that one and I have to sign that off. And if you really put yourself under pressure, or at least as I've found, if I really put myself under pressure, then actually there's lots I can cut out of my daily life. If things that connect us to ourselves and show us how we're connected to things bigger than ourselves, if you, as I do, define them as spiritual practices, and all of these things are spiritual practices. Every single one of them is a spiritual practice. That's why I insist this is not a productivity book. I think this is a book about purpose and who we are and who we want to be in this world. I was actually having a conversation with somebody who was a colleague when I was CEO of Wolf Holdings, and she asked me, how are they experiencing you that's different from when I experienced you as my CEO? People at Dr. Martens describe me as, this would surprise my parents and my family, as the calmest man in the room. Like nobody was saying that 10 years ago. Like, you know, because I'm not letting the readily available data freak me out anymore. And I don't know when that switch happened. I guess it happened gradually over time. But I noticed that I'm a much, much, much calmer human being. I think that is the main fruit compared to my time at Wolf Holdings, when maybe I saw my job as to be the idea generator in chief. Whereas here, I see my job much more as the provider of perspective so that we can make the best possible decisions. Essentialism for me is also, as I lead, we have 3,500 people, most of them now because of the retail team. Most of them are Gen Zs, or lots of millennials, but it's like very generationally different from what I was used to when I was at this stage of life. Essentialism is helping me ask the question, not what does the organization need to achieve, not what is my agenda, but what is it that we need to do as leaders to create the conditions for every individual to do their life's best work? And the answers to that question will surprise you if you answer it purely. I define my essence as helping people live fulfilled lives, right? And so when I think about how I spend my day, who's that going to help live a more fulfilled life? If the answer is that, helps me say no. And Brené Brown has this thing, she did some research on generosity, and she says, in a way that she finds, what's interesting about her work, her research work, not sort of her podcasting, which is great as well, but her research work is she finds a way to put data to things that you didn't think you could put data to. And she has this way of measuring generosity, and she evaluated generosity across lots of cultures and roles, and found that the most generous people by her measure were monks, Buddhist monks. And then she did another piece on who are the most boundaried people, and Buddhist monks came up top as well. And so this idea that how clear we are about our boundaries of what I do and what I don't do, actually make us more generous. And therefore, we don't have any guilt when we say no, because we understand that not as a selfish act, but actually as an act of service, because I need to say no enough so that when I do say yes, I can provide the best possible service. One of the behaviors I've modeled a lot in Dr. Martens, almost with a bit of edge, and I'm not particularly edgy and angry, but almost with a bit of edge, and if it happens too often with a flash and a bit of anger, is people bring in problems to me that they should be able to solve themselves. How do you cascade accountability to the right point? And then how do we as leaders really back up that you're accountable for that, and I'm not even going to express my opinion because that might shake you off of your conviction. So it's about modeling that behavior and making sure that if I say that I am not an important, or I'm not a critical contributor to this, then don't go behind the back, or don't kind of go, oh, I see what you guys have done. Have you thought about this? Or because I'm very capable of doing that. Have you thought about it this way? Or I had an idea that you could have done. Like, that's the stuff that just gets in the way. And I've had to train myself to just don't express an opinion. Ask them, do you guys, so this is more a question. Do you believe I have no background to saying what I'm about to say. So I'm asking, is that the best solution you can possibly come up with? If you could do anything, is that what you would do? Those kinds of questions, as opposed to, like I said, in my own life, chief idea officer. Oh, I see what you guys did. I've had another thought. Like I did a lot of that the last time I was a CEO, and in retrospect, it wasn't helpful. I had a lot of joy with this at Apple, actually. So the teams I led in Apple, I think the impact of this was that they understood how to collaborate, because everybody's opinion was respected, but also everybody's boundary was respected. And it's that duality of, if she's accountable and responsible for that, we have to trust her on that and support her on that. But there are also these places where we come together, and but we all know what is the essence of what we're trying to achieve together, so we can collaborate